Hi everyone! Today we will discuss fitness type. It's one of the most interesting topic, and we will consider how actually fitness and different its variation can improve the physical performance itself. So with what we will start is health-related fitness. Health-related fitness is a measure of a person's ability to perform physical activities that require endurance, strength, or flexibility. This kind of fitness is achieved through a combination of regular exercise and inherent ability. The components of health-related physical fitness are aerobic fitness, muscular strength, muscular endurance, flexibility, and body composition, as they relate specifically to health enhancement. The main point of any kind of fitness is health influence, and during training sessions we should always pay attention on how this kind of exercise, for example, should be performed, or what kind of training method should be applied in our training in order to enhance our health, to make our body not only stronger but also more resistant to some environmental negative influence to our body. Very important to have physical exercises or fitness on a regular basis. That means that we have a plan of training sessions. It could be 2 or 3 times a week, or even more often, but it should be systematically performed. Sometimes it's quite a difficult task to choose the kind of fitness that suits our goals in a much better way. And inherent ability, for example, strength training predisposition in high level of endurance very much depends on our inherent abilities. That means genetic predisposition. The vast majority of physical activities are connected with fitness, but especially with aerobic fitness. And during this class we will discuss more focused of aerobic training. We will be familiar with other names for this kind of fitness, but aerobic fitness is also has some inherent predisposition. Very often we could observe during training session that one person is very good in cardio training or aerobic fitness exercising, but others are not so successful. And the answer could be uncovered actually in how the organism, how the oxygen could be transported and utilized by organism. And another issue is muscular endurance, and it will be also discussion. Muscular endurance very often refers to strength endurance. That means how we can demonstrate our strength abilities in a particular period of time. Such exercises, for example, as squats or our biceps exercising with repetition about 15, and applying interval method, is a good example how we can develop our muscular endurance. Also, we will discuss flexibility. It's a very important topic actually, because flexibility, it's not only how can we be moving and what's the level of movement do we possess in our joints, but also flexibility allow us to perform any kind of activity, any kind of movement much more efficient. Skill-related fitness is often confused with health-related fitness components. Skill-related components often go hand in hand with certain physical activities and are necessary for a person to accomplish or enhance a skill or a task. Skill-related components include agility, coordination, reaction time, balance, speed, and power. An individual can still achieve and maintain a healthy lifestyle and lifelong participation in physical activity without possessing a high degree of skill-related components. Usually we can attend gyms and develop our health-related fitness by applying exercises and indirectly working on our skill-related fitness as well. There are two parts, two sides of our development of our movement system, health-related and skill-related fitness. And actually, by applying some exercises in order to influence our agility development or coordination, we can bring diversity to our training, to the process of our fitness, because it brings much more interesting exercises or brings novelty in our process of fitness. Diversity and making the process much more interesting, applying our imagination in the process of fitness. It's a wonderful way to actually spend a leisure time. Aerobic fitness is just one component of health-related fitness, but it is generally considered the most important physiological indicator of good health and physical condition. A number of other terms are frequently used to describe this component of health-related fitness, such as cardiorespiratory fitness, aerobic endurance, aerobic capacity, aerobic power, cardiorespiratory endurance, cardiovascular fitness, and cardiovascular endurance. All these terms are very spread in literature and applied in different planning, research work, just colleague discussion, and if you have some kind of sport or gym magazine, you can meet different terms referring to aerobic fitness. Aerobic fitness develop our capacity to utilize oxygen and generate power, energy, and perform any kind of physical activity for a long period of time. But the duration of this period depends on our age, depends on our inherent endurance abilities, as I told before, inherent of our physical preparation. For example, what kind of experience as an athlete, as a trainee, do we possess? All these factors influence the aerobic fitness at the moment. We should consider very often that our ability to utilize oxygen and to develop our aerobic energy system could be a critical factor for any kind of fitness in the future that will come. For example, if we did not develop our aerobic fitness parameters, we will meet limitations in any kind of fitness. For example, strength endurance training. We could not perform this kind of training in a much more successful way if previously we did not develop our aerobic fitness. person's level of aerobic fitness is contingent on the ability of the heart and lungs to circulate oxygen-rich blood to the exercising tissues, the ability of muscle cells to extract and use the oxygen for energy production, and the ability of the circulatory system to return blood to the heart. The amount of oxygen that a person uses per minute is called oxygen consumption. For adults, the criterion measure of aerobic fitness is the maximal oxygen consumption. So the name is for this term is VO2 max. This quantity is the maximum amount of oxygen that a person can use to produce energy during physical activity. In normal healthy adults, this parameter, oxygen consumption, generally increases with fitness and is therefore a good measure of aerobic fitness. Considering these physiological issues of aerobic fitness is not actually a purpose of this lecture, and we do not have so much time for this, but I suppose that you already have other subjects that study how the human organism react to the load, how oxygen utilized, and I suppose that you already are familiar with such phenomena as oxygen consumption, as the blood circulation, and the cardiovascular system as well. But during this class we will of course refer to these crucial processes of human organism and try to bring some examples how aerobic fitness depends on the development of these mechanisms. Let's talk about training methods for aerobic fitness. Generally, there are three main training methods that are used to maintain or increase aerobic fitness: continuous, interval, and circuit training. I think some of you are familiar with these training methods, but sometimes you just didn't recognize it as the separated methods. You just attended gym and performed some exercises, and in this case, in this scenario, I think it will be much more easier for you to go through this lesson, through this material, and just use your experience and imagination to remember how these or those exercises were performed and what actually training method was applied in the past by you. Let's start with continuous method. So continuous training is performing the same activity or exercise over an extended period. Continuous activity is defined as movement that lasts at least several minutes without rest periods. And by the way, continuous training we can arrange not only in gym, just simple walking or jogging or running or swimming or bicycling, cross-country skiing. All these activities could be excellent examples of continuous training, and continuous training could bring a tremendous effect on our aerobic fitness development. It's a wonderful type of exercising. Continuous training method is an excellent tool to develop our aerobic system. If our exercising could last more than 10 or 15 minutes with moderate intensity, we will develop our mechanism how to utilize oxygen and generate energy. And this is the fundamental physiological process that allow us to perform continuously for hours different kind of physical activities. The ability to utilize oxygen and generate ATP, energy, is the fundamental aspect of human organism. And developing this system, actually aerobic fitness, we build a solid foundation for other kinds of fitness. And continuous method is one of the most effective tools that should be and could be applied by us. Continuous training method is an excellent tool to develop our aerobic system. If our exercising could last more than 10 or 15 minutes with moderate intensity, we will develop our mechanism how to utilize oxygen and generate energy. And this is the fundamental physiological process that allow us to perform continuously for hours different kind of physical activities. The ability to utilize oxygen and generate ATP, energy, is the fundamental aspect of human organism. And developing this system, actually aerobic fitness, we build a solid foundation for other kinds of fitness. And continuous method is one of the most effective tools that should be and could be applied by us. And now let's talk about interval training method. Interval training is based on the concept that more activity can be performed at higher exercise intensity with the same or even less fatigue compared with continuous training. This type of training involves alternated short bursts of activity with a rest period. This type of training may also serve as an opportunity for all the students to have a choice of how quickly the exercise period begins. Interval training is very often could be met in weightlifting gyms. For working you with machines or free weight, you can perform interval training. And the example could be, one of the examples could be working on your biceps or triceps and performing 2 or 3 or even 4 approaches with 15 repetitions each, and rest interval 1 or 60 or 90 seconds. So it depends on your experience, on your strength endurance abilities, what training design of interval training should be applied. Interval training use not only develop aerobic fitness capacities but also anaerobic fitness capacities. This is another energy system, and we will not discuss it in deep right now. But I suppose all of you are familiar with the effect of anaerobic training when lactic acid accumulates in the muscle tissue significantly, and this could induce some psychological discomfort and unpleasant feelings, like a burning feeling in the muscle, and painful feelings too. That's why interval training is more suitable for more experienced athletes or students. And this is important because if we apply step by step more advanced training methods and designs, the more experienced we are, and the more profit, the more progress we can attain. Interval training should be applied with some precautions. For example, if we go to in gym, we should pay attention what kind of machines we will use. Best option, if there is a coach or fitness instructor, just go and ask about some information and precautions and so on, because fitness instructor in a particular gym is more familiar with the specifics of equipment, and also could be eventually more experienced in theory, training theory. So discussing the topics and asking questions that very critical for you could bring not only enhancement in your fitness training, but also bring element of studying, of learning of this process. And the more you know about how the human organism function, how training should be performed, and what outcome could it bring, all this information, all this theory is essential for your progression in fitness training. And now let's have a look on circuit training, that involves several different exercises or activities, allowing you to vary the intensity or type of activity as you move from station to station. You can also adjust intensity by changing the amount of time that you spend at each station, or the amount of rest or activity between stations. For example, stretching between stations versus running once around the activity area. Circuit training is very popular in the fitness industry, and such fitness variation as CrossFit, for example, is one of the examples of classical circuit training. Circuit training could hold different amount of stations. It could be 5, it could be 10, it could be 3, but the rest interval and the exercise itself belonging to a particular station depends on your experience. It depends on your preparedness, physical preparedness, depends on your conditioning. And circuit training, one of the most important aspect is excellent tool to bring diversity to your training sessions, because you constantly are changing the type of activity, constantly changing the type of exercising, and so on. So if you want to make your training sessions much more interesting, circuit training, one of the most wonderful variation that you can apply. So 3 methods. The first one is continuous, the second one is interval training, and the third one circuit training. All these 3 methods could be combined together during the training session or during the training week, month, and so on. So use your creativity. Of course, you need some knowledge and theory and practice, but the most important thing is your motivation and applying your own creativity, your imagination. What kind of training design should be present. It's a process. It's not just for now. It's not just for days. It's for your future. And physical education as a process, and the subject actually the university directed to assist you to build up your own vision how fitness should be performed and how health-related fitness should be accomplished. And here we have one of the example of circuit training with stations. So 9 stations. We start with just jogging for 20 seconds, and the second station is stepping aerobics. We perform steps. After that we perform again jogging and curl ups, working on our abdominal muscles. After this station we move by jogging to shuttle run 2 rounds, and this station number 4 is good for agility development. After we go to leap over 3-foot bar or 2 feet high. After that, seal crawl across mats. Number 7 station, crab walk around cones. After station number 8, rope jumping, we perform jumps. And station number 9, where we finish, is just walking and stretching. This is the circuit training plan, actually designed for children, but this is a good example how can we design our circuit training. So, as it was shown on the picture before, we could design our station's content depending on our ability to perform on a particular exercise, depending on our experience and what interests us the most in fitness. So let's go to the next aspect of our class, and we will for now we will discuss muscular strength and endurance, and we will briefly go through definitions of muscular strength and endurance concepts. For the development of total fitness, a well-rounded health-related fitness program must include muscular strength and muscular endurance. Muscular strength is the ability of a muscle or muscle group to exert maximal force against a resistance one time through the full range of motion. The emphasis on the full range of motion is important because any movement less than full range is counterproductive. That means strength or endurance gains occur only in the range of motion exercised. Muscular strength is often denoted as a 1 repetition maximum, or 1 RM, which stands for 1 repetition maximum. Muscular endurance is the ability of a muscle or muscle group to exert a submaximal force repeatedly over a period of time. So, submaximal force repeatedly means that we apply interval method, and this period of time of this muscle exertion depends on the ability of our muscle to first generate muscular contraction and derive energy for this, and second, to tolerate metabolic reactions and lactic acid accumulation especially. So these two parts of muscular adaptation should be maintained and achieved during interval training. One repetition maximum is the scientifically based explanation how maximal strength is often expressed. Maximal strength and endurance could be developed not only by running or swimming, but also working with some resistance. When we go to the gym, we can work in machines or with free weight or rubber band or with partner, but always it is resistance what we try to meet by muscle contraction. And this process laid foundation for specific training, resistance training, that is could also be named as a strength training, is a systematic and pre-planned program using a variety of methods. A person's own body weight or tension bands or equipment such as machines or free weights that progressively stresses the musculoskeletal system to improve muscular strength. On the other hand, weightlifting is considered a competitive sport involving maximal lifts, and further specification includes Olympic weightlifting. And these specifics bring to us different types of training. It could be bodybuilding, it could be weightlifting, powerlifting, or resistance training. And depending on our goals, we can choose one or another. As the name of this class, fitness, we choose health-related fitness. And resistance training is a wonderful tool to achieve this particular goal. As we considered it before, the previous slide, total fitness, well-rounded health-related fitness must include muscular strength and muscular endurance. So that means that using resistance training, we can assist health-related fitness in whole. Resistance training should have some safety theory instructions and precautions. Some exercises could be harmful if they applied without any precautions. For example, what's our legs position, our feet position should be during particular resistance training exercise. How should we maintain our spine? What rotation should be performed in our joints? What should be our head position, and so on. Breathing pattern, many specifics, and all this information should be acquired by us by self-study, by consultation with a coach or instructor or physical education teacher. And this information is critical actually, but for your future self-improvement in fitness. And that's the topics of fitness or physical education and the physical education process. And now let's consider benefits of resistance training. A variety of benefits are associated with resistance training. Many of these benefits are age-related. Potential benefits of resistance training include the following: increased muscular strength. Of course, when we go to gym, the goal and our intention to be stronger. and applying a particular exercise and method, we influence and induce adaptation in our skeletal muscle tissues. Also, the benefit could be increased muscular power or ability to exert a force rapidly. This is especially important for so-called explosive power, demonstrated when we are jumping, throwing, and so on. And this power is also very essential for overall fitness. Increased muscular endurance. Strength endurance based on this benefit of resistance training. And as I said before, strength endurance responsible for continuous repetitions with a particular force exerted by our skeletal muscles. Are we working in gym? Are we performing outdoor some exercising? The quality of these exercises depends on how strength endurance was developed. Improvement in aerobic fitness using circuit weight training. Aerobic fitness, of course, could be relied on different methods, and circuit weight training is only one of them. As we considered before, it could include not only weight training, weightlifting, or work with your own weight, but also some stretching exercises or jogging or working and so on. So it depends on your experience, your abilities to perform physical exercises, your conditioning level. So it's more creative to choose what kind of stations should be in this kind of circuit weight training. Prevention of musculoskeletal injury. Very important benefit, because if we have strength endurance quite developed and our muscle and ligaments are reinforced, we can perform any kind of physical activities much more protected, and even on an everyday basis. Are we walking? Are we going to the university in the winter time when the road is quite slippery, covered with snow or ice? Falling down in this situation could be harmless in most of the cases, because our skeletal muscles are hypertrophied, reinforced, and ligaments too. And muscles and ligaments, they surround the joints, so joints are more protected too. A lot of benefits concerning injury prevention by applying strength training and resistance training. And this is especially important for older people, because skeletal muscles are more disadapted, and ligaments too, and some impacts could be quite harmful. Next benefit of resistance training is improved sport performance, and this is especially true for those athletes who develop their strength endurance and maximum strength and other types of strength in their competitions. Many kinds of sport, not only weightlifting, but also, for example, swimming, require a particular level of strength endurance development. It's important. Just imagine a swimmer who should swim 200 meters butterfly should be well prepared for this kind of performance. Some muscle groups should be well developed, and strength endurance developed too. And the majority of sport disciplines, not only in swimming but in other kinds of sport, require a particular level of strength in training and strength endurance development. Next benefit: reduced risk of fractures in adulthood. Older people characterized by decreased mineralization in the bones and having resistance training, we can bring balance in these mineralization issues, and also make muscle groups stronger, muscle groups that surround a particular bones or parts of a body, surrounds also joints, very important. And this resistance training could be a protective measure for eventual fractures. Next benefit is enhanced bone development in both bone strength and bone growth during the skeletal growth period. Resistance training enhance nutrition and some trophical mechanisms, not only in muscles but also in bones tissue that surrounded by this muscle. So those benefits, not the whole list, but just the beginning. And when you will give me a feedback of this lecture, you will have to complete the control test, and some of the questions based on these benefits will be composed there too. So try to remember it or watch it later again. So let's go to the next slide and continue considering cautions, resistance training cautions. And the first one is there must be adequate supervision by instructors who know resistance training concerns for a particular group. Very important. Always, when you go to the gym, try to be familiar with an instructor, coach, or trainer, teacher. And if you have any questions, just ask him, and I suppose that a proper information will be given to you. But if you are just newcomer for weightlifting, for strength training gym, of course any essential information that you will need should be given to you, and only after that some more specific questions could be generated by your conscious. But if you're just newcomer, it could be only one or two questions. What's the time schedule for your gym, for example, and so on. It's not the issue, it's not the specific question. But after several training sessions, weeks or even months, more questions could be generated by you, and more information will be given. Next caution is proper technique and safety for each lift must be emphasized. And again, proper technique and safety is more prerogative for gym instructor. So it's necessary to know for you a proper technique, but it also instructors or coach responsibility to watch how you perform the particular exercise and give you instructions how to correct it, for example, if the performance is not okay. By the way, proper technique also you can try to find out in literature or in the internet, some pictures or video files and some instructions, written instructions, to familiarize and study by yourself a proper technique. But the best way is to find a gym with a good instructor, very well qualified instructor, and have a consultation with him. And safety too is important. Sometimes it's not so interesting to follow the list of safety precautions that should be in any gym, but it's very important and critical. And safety precautions are not so multiple, but sometimes it's too boring to pay attention to them, but it's necessary. And so if you are just newcomer for gym and weightlifting training, try to communicate with the instructors and persons responsible for safety in a particular sport facility. It will protect you from some unpleasant moments in the future. Next precaution is resistance training should not be an isolated component. That means it should be part of a comprehensive program to increase motor skills and fitness. It's quite a rare situation when during resistance training is only one isolated component should be present. But more often the program should include whole body muscles and specific exercises that were chosen in order to achieve this kind of preparation. Motor skills and fitness, as we considered at the beginning of this lesson, go hand in hand, very close to each other. And motor skills such as agility and coordination, they are developed along you develop, for example, aerobic fitness. So very close correlation between these two. Next precaution is the resistance training should be preceded by a warm-up and followed by a cool-down. Very important algorithm and sequence. Before any training, we should prepare our body for a future physically stressful situation, and a proper warming up is a wonderful thing to make our training much more efficient and pleasant. And devote about 8-10 minutes for warming up. And during this warming up, think about the main exercises that you will be making. And warm up you need not only for body heat increasing, but also by muscle group activation and activation of your cardiovascular system and respiratory too. So it mentally it allows you to be prepared mentally for more physical efforts that you will require in performing a particular exercise, for example working in machines. Warming up, it's not kind of light version of training. It looks like this and feels like this, but if you will consider it like some entertainment for you and talk with your friends during warming up and laugh and have fun time, it actually could be not the very high quality warming up, because during this period you should not miss their your concentration. Your psychological concentration should be focused on a particular muscle groups, and you during this warming up exercising you could just imagine which movement you will perform during the main part of your training session, and this mental image will actually organize your body functioning and prepare your body automatically for the future stressful physical situation training actually. And so now let's talk about cool down. Is also important part of training. Cool down need to facilitate recovery of human body and to relieve some stress, physical stress, psychological stress that was induced by training. During cool down you can also make some stretching exercising that also could facilitate blood circulation and lactic acid utilization, deriving more oxygen and the utilization of oxygen by muscle tissues. Cool down could include also 8 minutes, 10 minutes, it depends on the situation, but be careful do not have a too long cool down part, because you lose the temperature, you lose the body heat that was quite high enough during the main part and warming up. And if you are in a gym with some or outside or with open window, but this is a winter time, for example, and it's windy outdoor, so you can catch a cold easily if you will have a too long cool down process. So again, it's very important during warming up and cool down, despite it could felt and looked like a light version of training, it actually not it is. It's a part of your training, but your concentration and your thoughts should be devoted only for the performing a particular training plan. And warm up and cool down should be well structured and full should have complete focused by you. Next precaution tells us that both concentric contractions and eccentric contractions should be included. Let's talk about concentric contractions. I hope that you know what it is, but muscle shortens. This is the concentric contractions. And the eccentric contractions, it's a dynamic way muscle lengthens. Good example. You work on your biceps, and when you flex your arm and you lift a weight, your biceps work in a concentric contractions because bicep shortens. What happens next? When weight goes down, but we still keep it by bicep contraction, this is the eccentric contractions, because as the weight goes down, the muscle lengthens, stretches, lengthens. This is an example of eccentric contractions. I suppose this is a simple example. Could give you the complete image with contractions, concentric and eccentric, where muscle shortens and lengthens. A list of resistance training cautions. Of course, it depends on some specific situation and gym and kind of exercises that should be a content in your fitness program, but in majority of cases you will meet these precautions and try to follow them. Go to the next part of our lesson, and let's consider next component of fitness, namely flexibility. A well-designed flexibility training aids in muscle relaxation, improves overall health, related fitness, posture, and body symmetry, may relieve muscle cramps and soreness, and reduces the risk of injury, all of which make physical activity of all types easier and safer to do. In addition, stretching can relieve emotional stress, increase feelings of well-being, and help prepare the body to move from resting to exercising more smoothly. Well, you see, flexibility is not only the movement, the range of movement in joints, but also it's a tool. It aids in muscle relaxation. For example, when we have a cool down, using stretching and working on our flexibility will actually induce muscle relaxation. And by relaxation we mean also recovery, faster recovery. Good thing. Improving overall health related fitness. Of course, if we have big muscles and we lack flexibility and our movements look so clumsy, crampy, it's this kind of fitness are we looking for? I suppose no. So flexibility and maintaining a particular range of movement in our joints is essential for our technique, for our body functioning, for our appearance, by the way, how we look like, how our movement look like. It's very important. Posture also depends on flexibility. Body symmetry, of course, too. We should work on our flexibility and make our movements more symmetrical, and our appearance, our posture more symmetrical too. Muscle cramps and soreness also could be reduced by applying flexibility training, stretching exercises, and also it could facilitate recovery. Risk of injury depends also on how our flexibility is developed. And by the way, flexibility could also induce psychological relief. Flexibility exercises could induce psychological relief. We could manage some stressful situation much more easier if we are, for example, stretching right now. Yoga, as you know, also includes not only stretching technique, but also some mental techniques too, because in this kind of activity flexibility works together with some mental work too. And people who attend yoga classes, they calm down and um, they take much more smoothly the stress and the problems, difficulties that life bring us. Emotional stress, of course, could be relieved much more efficiently if we will apply stretching techniques. But sometimes if we have a warming up, some kind of flexibility exercises could actually activate our body and prepare us much more efficiently for the main exercises that will come. Flexibility training could be efficient not only in childhood, but also when we are adults too. Older people should perform flexibility exercises too, because everything is changing, and if we neglect flexibility at any age, it will be limited significantly. And if we consider our physical activity as a regular process, we should include also flexibility training in this process too, as well as aerobic fitness or strength training. Some kinds of sport and exercises require particular range of movement in joints. For example, if you go to the swimming pool and you try to learn how to swim backstroke, for example, you will need a particular flexibility in your shoulders, in your ankles, in your hips, for example. And by developing flexibility, you will facilitate acquiring a proper technique, backstroke swimming technique. And this phenomena, the flexibility training, is essential, not only because you will try to follow all the benefits like posture, body symmetry, health-related fitness, emotional stress relief, but also it will universally prepare your body, your joints, your skeletal muscles, universally for any kinds of movement. For example, your friends found out a new kinds of sport, like aqua aerobics, for example, and invite you too. But if you lack some flexibility in your joints, aqua aerobics could be quite a challenge for you. You could actually follow the movements that instructor shows to the group, and in this case you could be eventually demotivated, and this lack of flexibility could limit the quality of your leisure time. That's why it's so important to have a healthy lifestyle, to follow and maintain health-related fitness and the components too, including flexibility, aerobic fitness, and strength endurance. This is a short introduction to flexibility, And now let's consider flexibility characteristics more detailed. Flexibility is a term used to characterize the range of motion, so-called room, of a single joint or a series of joints. Optimal flexibility allows a joint or a group of joints to move freely and efficiently. Too much laxity or hypermobility in a joint is not healthy and may lead to injury. Laxity refers to the degree of abnormal motion of a given joint. Abnormal joint laxity means that the ligaments connecting bone to bone can no longer provide stability to the joint. Hypermobility refers to excess range of motion at a joint. Both conditions may predispose a person to injury. People with hypermobility should not be allowed to stretch into the extremes of range of movement and should try to maintain as much joint stability as possible. There are two types of flexibility. The first, static flexibility, that relates to the range of motion about a joint with no emphasis on speed. The limits of a person's static flexibility are determined by his or her tolerance to the stretched position. The second, dynamic flexibility, refers to the ability to use a range of joint movement in the performance of a physical activity at a normal or rapid speed. Dynamic flexibility exercises are commonly used in sport-specific movements. Dynamic flexibility does not involve a bouncing type of movement, which is characteristic of a ballistic stretch, but rather a controlled elongation of a specific muscle group. This is the list of some extreme situation associated with flexibility. Sometimes flexibility is not developed well, and our range of movement in joints are quite limited. But sometimes we have a hypermobility. It's not good too. As it was mentioned before, it could lead to some injuries. It's actually it can predispose a person to injury. Of course, if you are more interested in this scientific data, you can just follow the reference in brackets and find the material. Here's just a brief summary of some precautions that you should know. As a future doctors or physicians, you should be familiar with some flexibility, hypermobility issues for health. And having this data, I hope you will meet this kind of situations well prepared. Let's have a look more precisely what types of stretching actually exists in literature, for example, and start with unassisted. In the active stretch, unassisted, that means no help we are receiving. The person stretching provides the force of the stretch, and assistance comes only from the opposite antagonist muscle, for example, trunk lift. Good example when we are working by ourselves without any partner, but working only with our own body. Next type is passive stretch or assisted, means that the person or partner, gravity or an implement provides the force of the stretch. passive stretch. That means something or someone assists us to stretch. Next type is a static stretch. That is a slow, sustained stretch that is held for 10 to 30 seconds. The person stretches the muscular tendon unit to the point where mild discomfort is felt and then backs off slightly, holding the stretch at a point just before discomfort occurs. This stretch is generally considered safe and it does not rely on cooperation from a partner. In physical education classes, especially at the elementary level, this type of stretching is preferred. The advantages of static stretching include decreased possibility of exceeding the normal range of movement and less muscle soreness. You see, a static stretch is quite a gentle way to develop flexibility. And here we have a reference also to literature. If you are much more interested in this data, you can follow the link and find out more detailed information. So this is the types of stretching. It's not so complicated, but they will be mentioned in control test, and please try to remember them and the main characteristics too. As you can see, mentioned on the slide types of stretching are quite soft measures, soft exercises or tools to develop flexibility. But there are also more intensive types of stretching that should be applied only with person who much more experienced and physically prepared. And the first of them is the ballistic stretching, that involves moving quickly, bouncing, or using momentum to produce the stretch. It elicits muscle soreness, according to the author. This type of stretch is often viewed as necessary for sport movements and should be reserved for coaching or conditioning athletes and not used in general physical education classes. An example of ballistic stretching is bouncing down repeatedly to touch the toes. I suppose that you are well familiar with this kind of exercise, this example, ballistic stretching, bouncing down repeatedly to touch the toes. Sometimes you can feel pain, soreness on your hips, leg muscles. Unfortunately, it could be, it's quite spread situation. You should just keep in mind one criteria when you are when it is too complicated for you to divide what types of stretching is good, what is not so good. If you feel pain, just pain in any muscle group, so this type of stretching is not recommended for you, and try to avoid it. But you see a previous slide. If you feel discomfort, mild discomfort is felt, you see difference, pain, soreness, or mild discomfort. So mild discomfort actually should be associated with stretching. But if you apply more force, more ballistic movement and so on, and you induce pain, that means you should stop. This is the wrong way. Next type of stretching is dynamic stretching. not to be confused with ballistic stretching. Involves moving parts of your body and gradually increasing range of movement, speed of movement, or both together. People tend to use the terms dynamic and ballistic interchangeably, but dynamic stretching is different from ballistic stretching in that it avoids the bouncy, jerky type of movement. Examples of dynamic stretches include controlled leg and arm swings that safely go through the student's range of movement. So this is important, but maybe a little bit difficult to comprehend and imagine. Dynamic stretching is good, but ballistic very often could be harmful. Dynamic recommended for any group. It's just students, or there is sport athletes. Dynamic stretching equally efficient and safe to apply, but ballistic stretching recommended only for prepared athletes, for sportsmen and sportswomen, but not for beginners. Benefits of flexibility. Let's consider it. Then the first one is decreased muscle tension and increased relaxation. That's why I strongly recommend you to apply stretching technique in a cool down section of your training. You will recover faster, you will feel better, you feel good actually after stretching in cool down training. Sometimes in the evening hours, when the day is almost over, you can devote 15 minutes to stretching and increasing your flexibility. You actually will work with your mental state too. You will calm down. You can relieve from emotional stressful situation that was during this day. You can actually think much more precisely and brightly when you are stretching, because this kind of work, not only physical but also mental, is very rewarding. It can give you much more satisfaction of the day, of the training too. Next benefit is greater ease of movement. Of course, range of movement should not limit our performance. Are we going to swimming pool and are we going to learn backstroke or butterfly technique swimming? Of course, we require flexibility. We need it. Improved coordination. Well coordinated person are flexible too. It's quite difficult to imagine a man who develop muscles in so great extent but lacks flexibility, range of movement in joints too reduced, too limited, and the movement looks crampy and clumsy. The picture, the appearance, not what we want to have. And also coordination could suffer too. Increased range of motion. Yes, just imagine if we go to in track and field training and we want to jump, we want to throw some subjects. Range of movement should be extended enough, and of course flexibility training should be considered in these kinds of sport too. For example, track and field. Possibility of reduced injury risk. Although normal flexibility is essential for good muscular fitness, greater than normal levels of flexibility fail to show a reduction in the risk of injury. We considered this phenomena before. If we have hypermobility in our joints, actually it can be dangerous. It could bring harmful and injury to our parts of our body. So persons with hypermobility should pay attention for particular muscle groups and joints, and build up a protective mechanism to compensate this hypermobility. Maybe you could ask, how can we build this protective mechanism? But it's the answer is simple. I suppose you know it already. We should increase the muscle tone, the muscle groups that surround the particular joint. And by training, strength training, resistance training of these muscle groups, we make them stronger. We increase muscle tone of these groups, and this could be a protection for a particular joint, for example knee joints or ankle joint, or shoulder joint too. Of course, it's very important. Shoulder joints are very vulnerable for impacts, and in order to protect it, we should pay attention how our upper body muscle groups are developed. Next benefit is a better body awareness and postural alignment. We all want to look nice and have a good posture, be beautiful, and by working on flexibility we can actually achieve some goals in how our appearance is right now. If we have strength training, probably our posture alignment could be not so good, but by applying stretching, increasing flexibility, we work actually on this postural alignment correction. Let's go further in benefit of flexibility. Improved circulation and air exchange. After a training session, during the cool down, applying stretching, working on flexibility, we facilitate blood circulation. We actually facilitate metabolic substances removal from our skeletal muscle, like a lactic acid, for example. And also, with this increased circulation, we bring oxygen and nutrition to our organs or muscles. Smoother and easier contractions. Our technique, the technique of exercise, could be improved significantly if our flexibility is high enough. Working on flexibility, we can make our contractions, skeletal muscles, more effective, more smoother and easier. Flexibility may relieve muscle soreness. Sometimes after a very hard training, a particular muscle group or a single muscle could be not completely relaxed, and this prolonged contraction, cramp, could give us a painful feelings. And by stretching this muscle, working on flexibility, we can stretch these muscle fibers overcontracted, and relax them, and this painful situation could be solved. Next one is prevention of low back pain and other spinal problems if normal flexibility levels are maintained. Of course, trunk muscles should be flexible too and stretched, and working on with some flexibility exercises, we not only work on our postural alignment but also symmetry and how ligaments and parts of our body are positioned, because symmetry should not be in appearance, but symmetry should be also when we are exercising. Imagine if we have asymmetrical position of our shoulders and we work with some weights, it could bring this balance of external load applied to our spine, and gradually, training after training, this poor technique could actually lead us to some spinal problems, back pain, unfortunately. So important issue, and important to follow, to keep it in mind for you, for as a doctor, for example, working with patients who could have complaints about some spinal problems and low back pain. Sometimes the reason for this pain is in lack of flexibility by not normal postural alignment. Next benefit: improved personal appearance and self-image. Of course, we all of us want to be beautiful and have a good personal appearance and self-image. All of this needed for self-confidence, and self-confidence needed for motivation, not only for training but for any kind of activity or enterprise what we are trying to make. Important. Next, improved development and maintenance of motor skill. If we are learning new technique, we should be familiar with what range of movement it associated with. Backstroke or butterfly swimming needed a particular range of movement in our joints, in our ankles, in our hips, and knowing it, not theoretically but practically, we will develop our flexibility. We considered 3 types of fitness. It's aerobic fitness, it's strength training, and flexibility. In order to get a feedback from you, I expect you will complete control test. The link will be below in Moodle section, just below the hyperlink to this video lesson. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, you can give your response by comments or just write in a personal message in Moodle. So see you next time. I wish you a good day. Bye bye.